but you'll always want to connect across or to a center harness with your supplied air line so that it's not pulling directly on the connection. All right? Any questions about the BCD so far? These here are for a Class 1 rated harness, waist harness, if you want that.
Do you guys normally just, like, when you've been going and working with all these different departments, you normally just have this set up basically all ready to go at your entry point, and then your divers just pretty much have to come down and they're, you know, with the rest of it, and they just, is that how you normally have it set up?
No, so guys are getting off the rig, putting this on, walking down.
Oh, walking down, okay.
Yeah, because you can use this without supplied air.
Okay.
You can just dive this system.
So they're putting it on right as they get,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
And then that plate just gets added last thing.
Yep, that's the last thing added, right? Let's hook up your octo.
Yeah.
If you're just diving this without supplied air, what kind of redundancy would we have to put on there for air?
Well, so you shouldn't have to put any redundancy, but departments have certain policies, right? It's designed so that you'll always have air.
Okay.
Okay. It's designed with, and I'll go through the lever in a second here. I'll show you. So your octo goes on. We usually, there's two options to connect it. One is a plug that obviously goes in there, and then it's Velcro, and you can connect that and keep it wherever you choose to. The other is this system. This locks onto that main hose and then connects right in there. It's entirely up to what you guys want. I find this to be a much more beneficial device because it plugs this and stops the mud from going in, right? Because we're always in that nasty mud. So that's what we use. We plop that on. And again, you can put it on wherever you want.
We use neck lanyards. Is that, do you see an issue with that?
No, no, you can pop that in your neck lanyard, right? Whatever you want to do with that. It's entirely up to you guys. There's no necessarily right or wrong way with that. We're going to run this back down. Adjustments. So these are mediums. This will fit everybody. A good example was the Indiana State Police. We had 20 sets of gear that we set them up with, and then 3 sets of supplied air. So central, north, and south, right? Was their supplied air. Each officer got in their car a container with their own set of gear. They are using the larger tanks because they are without supplied air for a while. So they have 140 cubic foot bottles on their back. Of the 10 mediums and 10 larges that we sold them, we took 9 of the larges back. The only guy that kept the large was about this big. He's a huge dude. I think he's a former football player. He's the only one that fits into the large. Everybody else fits into the medium, including their female, who's about yay big. She's a badass. So every set of gear I have in Elk Grove, most everybody else in Division I, and everybody else I try to sell, we sell the medium too, because it just fits everybody well-rounded. All right. So that is your setup. Let's look at the regulator. So the regulator on this system here, this is a freeze cap, and in that freeze cap, and I'll show you when we do the maintenance on it, inside that freeze cap is a little rubber membrane. And that rubber membrane is what automatically senses the depth and the pressure and balances the regulator. So it's a piston regulator with diaphragm systems and some O-rings. So as you descend in depth, that auto senses and allows you to breathe easier, right? So that's a critical piece of equipment. For 5 years, mine was packed with mud to the point where that thing didn't inflate. So when I brought it up for service, they were laughing at me. They're like, "So has it been hard to breathe out there?" I'm like, "No, we haven't really noticed the difference." But that is what that is. So that's a key portion of cleaning and maintenance that's done in the field. It's very, very simple and easy. The two hoses that are coming off of here supply your top side manifold block, right? So when I turn this on, right now, anything top half is being supplied with tank air. So we have our Octo, we have our BCD inflator, and then we would have our dry suit inflator. And then if people put on a separate one for filling a lift bag or whatever you have. So anything on the top side is tank air. Anything on the bottom half is coming up to the regulator or to the manifold block up here. Comes up into here, and then there's a device called a shuttle valve. There's a spring-loaded valve that's right in here, and it automatically defaults to being open, right? So 140 pounds of air or greater, that's automatically always going to be open. So right now, if we were to turn the tank on and we add air in it, it's going to feed air up into here, give it to your mask, and you're good to go. Right? When you plug in the supplied air system, and ironically, this looks the same, doesn't it, as that regulator that's on your back? It's because it is. It's the same exact thing. It's what allows you to basically just turn the air on and put your diver in the water. You don't have to do anything topside panel. You don't have to adjust like a low pressure system where you have to adjust to depth. This automatically does it for you. When we take this and we plug this in, as long as I have pressure that's greater than 140 psi, essentially, right? That pressure then is going to push the spring this way and stop your air from coming up through these hoses. It's going to give you supplied air only. So right now, with this on, it's going to supply air to your mask. What about your Octo? Where's that air coming from?
Your tank.
Your tank. It's your redundant system. Okay? That's your redundant system. So if you were to
So
lose
no matter what,
this
this top half is always being fed from just the bottle.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So if you were to lose this system for some reason, and the most likely of those reasons is that this was to get ran over, let's say, by a boat, and it gets chopped up, right? I mean, that's the most likely thing that we can think of. Because of the built-in levels of redundancy, you shouldn't lose air, and if you do lose air, big deal. It automatically switches to your tanks, right? So if this was to get ran over and chopped up, and you were to lose air, this automatically switches to your tank air, all right? And if you had a problem feeding this, it would automatically give you the ability to grab your Octo, two separate systems. How easy is it to cut this? It's not. It's rated at 2,200 pounds. It's Kevlar reinforced. It's a high pressure system, fairly small, 2 mil orifice in there. Your comm line is built into it. Your lifeline is built into it, as long as this is hooked. And this is what I said you should hook crossways or to that center, right? So now I'm pulling here, I'm pulling through here. So can I lower somebody over a dock edge, over a boat, pull them up out of the ice, lower them from a break wall? Absolutely. If you put that class 1 harness into here and connect into there, technically you can lift, right? Or if you have a class 3 harness on underneath, you can technically lift. So it's strong, it's super, super strong, well rated. Line management becomes a little bit of a priority. It's entirely up to you guys what you want to do. I coil these up, make sure that this is closer than farther, right? So I don't want any extra line dangling away. And then obviously this would, your mask plugs into there, and this plugs into your comm port. Okay. Grab that mask. Oh, there it is. One more level of redundancy that you guys have built into the system, and that is an 80 bar or 1150 psi heads-up display light. All right. The only time that this heads-up display light is going to activate is on tank air. So if this light is going off and you're on supplied air, why is your tank at 1150? It's a leak somewhere, probably, right? So that's something to be aware of. As long as you're on supplied air, this light theoretically should never go off. You shouldn't use that much air from 4,500 pounds down to 1,100 just filling your BCD or hitting your dry suit or breathing off your octo. You shouldn't use that. So it's a level of redundancy. Now, I'm diving this without supplied air. I'm diving 72 cubic feet of air, and we're down half hour, 45 minutes. Boom, light goes off. Breathing my tank air down, right? Light goes off, 1150 psi. It's before that 1,000 psi mark. When this gets into the red, which is about 800 psi, you're going to get breathing restriction. Only when you're on tank air. Once you're plugged in supplied air, you should never get that low on your tank. And if you are getting that low on your tank, that red light's going off at what psi?
1150.
And at what psi do I need to flip my reserve? 800.
800.
Right. So if I'm diving this without supplied air, I get down to 1100 psi, my light starts going off. Guess what? It's time to get out. Time to get out. If I don't get out, let's say I'm down 60 feet and I need to do a decompression stop or I need to do a safety stop, and all of a sudden now I'm breathing, a little bit harder to breathe, you're on comms with the person, like, hey, don't forget about your safety valve, right? As you can see, the safety valve will not go down unless it is